Hi, this is Mark Sanborn. Welcome to my presentation for leaders entitled Upgrade. In it, I'll share with you how you can improve literally any area of your business or personal life using a system I've developed designed to create perpetual improvement. For the past 20 years, I've been speaking to audiences throughout the United States and abroad. I've made nearly 2,000 presentations on leadership, teamwork, customer service, mastering change, and motivation. My business, Sanborn & Associates, Inc., is an idea studio dedicated to developing leaders in business and in life. My goal is to make a positive difference to the difference makers, to those people who choose to influence and positively impact others by design. I've written 6 books, including The Fred Factor, How Passion in Your Work and Life Can Make the Ordinary Extraordinary. It's an international bestseller and was a top 10 business book in the United States for Business Week in 2004. The presentation you're listening to now, Upgrade, is based on my book by the same title, Upgrade, Proven Strategies for Dramatically Increasing Personal and Professional Success. And now, please enjoy the presentation.
Thanks. There is a question that you can't answer today. There is a question that none of us in the room have the answer to, myself included. I became aware of this question in 1988 as I was watching the Winter Olympics being televised live from Calgary, Canada. I was watching a relatively esoteric event called the Combined Alpine. The Combined Alpine requires 2 runs over the course of 2 different days. On his first run, there was a Swiss skier that year, and you may remember his name, Pirmin Zurbriggen. His sister is still active in World Cup skiing today. On his first run, Zurbriggen was so fast that because of the unusual scoring of this particular event, all he had to do to win a gold medal in the Combined Alpine the next day was not fall. In other words, if he made it to the bottom of the course standing up, he would have won the gold medal in the Combined Alpine. Now, what I'd like you to think about today is this question. For just a few seconds, put yourself in the starter's gate. You're in Zurbriggen's boots. You are a shoo-in for the gold medal, the acknowledgement, the awards, the reward, and endorsements that go with it. As you look down the course, here's the million-dollar question. How would you have skied your second run? You know, I've asked a lot of people that question over the years, and the most common response I get is, very carefully, very cautiously. Of course, if you know anything about Pirmin Zurbriggen, he did not. He exploded out of the gate. He was skiing very hard, about 2/3 of the way down the course. He caught his left ski on one of the gates, he went down, and when he did, he blew his chances for the gold medal in that event. He did go on to medal in other events during the 1988 Winter Olympics. He got to the bottom of the course for the Combined Alpine. Dozens of journalists surrounded him. They stuck microphones in his face, and they all asked the same question, different languages. They all wanted to know, why was a guy who was a shoo-in for the gold medal, why would he risk it? Why would he risk it? Zurbriggen, very quiet, very devout young man, he ignores them all, he walks away. Nobody knows the answer to that question. About 2 weeks later, as fate would have it, I was skiing up at Copper Mountain, about an hour and a half outside of Denver. And as I was making my way up a run that day on the ski lift, I found myself seated next to a ski instructor. And I found out through small talk and conversation that he was a personal friend of Zurbriggen's. They had taught skiing together many years earlier in Australia, of all places. As we were talking, it dawned on me that I could perhaps get the answer to the question that the journalist had asked. Why would someone who is a shoo-in for the gold medal risk it on his second run? I asked the ski instructor that question. I'll never forget his response. He said, you know, I have not talked to Pirmin since the Olympics, but I think I know him well enough I can explain it for you. See, in my opinion, Pirmin Zurbriggen wasn't trying just to win a gold medal at Calgary that day. He was, as always, trying to ski his best race. What I learned that day on the ski slopes is that most people are content to go through life achieving their goals and objectives, but leaders in any endeavor are those who pursue their potential. And you can tell me today how good you've become. You can give me your accomplishments and your honors and your awards of the past, but none of us in the room, myself included, has any clue how good we could be. And that's the question we can't answer. How good could you be? How much are you leaving on the table because you're playing it too cautiously, too conservatively, too safely as you pass through life? You know, sometimes others intimidate us with their accomplishments, but yet if we reverse that intimidation, they can compel and motivate us. For instance, one of the best-selling book series of recent times is the Left Behind series, written by Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins. And although Jerry Jenkins' name has just become a household word of late, he's been writing books for many, many years. And at last count, Jerry Jenkins had authored more than 120 books. More books than many Americans read in the course of a lifetime. And if you're a writer, you could let that intimidate you or you could let it inspire you. The choice is your perspective. Whether or not we reach our destination in life is the preoccupation that most of us have in our businesses and our personal lives. But what I'd like you to think about today as I talk about upgrade, 7 keys to consistently reaching new levels of success in your business and in your life. What I'd like you to think about today is the mode or class of transportation that you've chosen. You see, I happen to believe that it is always possible to upgrade. If you wanted to travel to a different geographical place than you were in today, there are many ways that you could get there. One of the least expensive, of course, would be to buy a bus ticket. Now, I don't know when the last time you took a bus was, but bus travel is anything but luxurious or exotic. Bus travel is not the preferred mode of travel for most people, so you could upgrade from a bus to an automobile, perhaps one that you rented. You could drive the automobile. An upgrade from that would be to own the automobile that you drove to that place. But if it was a long way away and you didn't want to drive, you could, of course, get an airplane ticket and you could have a seat in coach. But if you wanted to go to the next level, you might upgrade to first class. And you might think that's as good as upgrading gets, and yet there are some people who learn to fly airplanes and rent an airplane to go to their destination. And there are some people who are so successful that they're able to afford to buy the airplane that they fly to their next destination. And you might think that's as good as it gets, and yet there are some people who are so successful they own their own airline. You see, my point is, no matter how good we become in whatever it is that we do, there's always the opportunity to improve the way we travel through life. I'd like to share with you a concept that I coined many years ago that is a bit of a paradox, but I believe is psychologically sound. I call it the concept of positive discontent. Positive discontent simply says, be proud of what you've accomplished, but never be content with it. Now, to do one or the other is not good. I know people who are never proud of what they do. Nothing is ever good enough for themselves or their boss or their coworkers or their teammates, and they are perpetually dissatisfied. They do not allow themselves the luxury of enjoying their own success. So acknowledge your success. Take time to celebrate your success. Just don't become content with it. So positive discontent is a way to enjoy the journey while we continue to aim higher, while we continue to aspire higher to new levels of success in our businesses or in our lives. I'm going to give you 7 keys. 7 principles that you can use in your personal life and in your professional life. You see, I believe that truth is transferable. I believe that what's true at home is true at work. What's true with your employees is true with your friends, is true with your spouse, is true with your kids. And so I want to talk about some principles. Not to suggest that life is easily categorizable into 7 principles, but 7 focal points that will remind us of the things that we can do to continually keep inching to the next level of success in our businesses and in our lives. Now, upgrade is an acronym for those 7 principles. One of the things that I'll tell you as an aside is that if you want to continue to be successful in your life, write everything down. Don't wait for handouts, make handouts. Make your own notes. Don't be constricted by the way someone might want you to think about a topic or a subject. Be creative enough to approach it from your own vantage point. Write it all down. Well, if you don't write it down, this will at least help you remember what those 7 key principles are for upgrade. The U in upgrade stands for understand. Understand. The people who worry me today are the people who think they know it all. The people who are certain worry me. Because people who are certain are resistant to learning. The people I respect are people who are honestly confused. Because if you are confused, you are curious. If you're curious, you are open to learning. We have to understand that the way we learn has changed. It used to be that the person who was most successful was he or she who learned the most stuff the best. In other words, you were considered well-educated or enlightened if you knew the most stuff the best. Today, I believe that learning, the process of understanding has changed so that today, the most educated is he or she who learns the most important stuff the fastest. The most educated is he or she who learns the most important stuff the fastest. I was speaking in Austin, Texas, to a group of sales executives. These were owners of insurance agencies. And at the beginning of my presentation, it was a lively group of about 300, 350. I said, by a show of hands, how many of you are committed to reaching the next level of success? This was Texas. Some of them came out of their chairs. They all leapt to their feet. They shoved their hands in the air. Some of them yelled. In other words, everybody in the room was committed to reaching the next level of success. But the next question I asked floored them. I said, by a second show of hands, how many of you can tell me exactly what the next level of success looks like in your business? What it means in terms of revenue, what it means in terms of clients, employee retention, renewal policies. And there was a pause, a long pause, and slowly a few raised their hands, less than 15% in the room. You see, the first key to reaching the next level of success is to understand what it looks like in your business or your life. To quantify what it is you're trying to accomplish so that you're not living life by default, but rather by design. So that you're not simply trying to avoid certain fears and anxieties, but rather you're gravitating towards what it is you want to accomplish. Understand, number one, what the next level of success looks like. That's the jumping off point. The P in upgrade stands for plus, or add value. Plus, or add value. Many years ago, I met the number one salesperson for Southwestern Bell Business Systems Division. His name was Andy Altz. Chances are pretty good his name is still Andy Altz. At the time, Andy was selling Northern Telecom telecommunications equipment. But when they gave him his award, they mentioned that he was selling his Northern Telecom telecommunication equipment at a 6 to 8% market premium. In other words, he was selling the same equipment you could buy from anybody else for 6 to 8% more than they would have charged. I found this fascinating. He didn't have a different product or a different service. He was selling the same thing as his competitors, but consistently being paid more for it. So at the end of the banquet, I said, Andy, I got to ask you, what are you doing to get people to spend 6 to 8% more for the same stuff? Now, Andy is deeply Southern. He said, oh, you don't get it, man. He said, see, they ain't spending 6 to 8% more for the stuff. They're spending 6 to 8% more for me. See, I know the product better than the people who make it. He said, I am proactive rather than reactive. I know every account I call on better than anyone else who calls on them. And then he shared what might have been the best business wisdom I've ever heard. He said, the premium I charge is the value I create. You see, Andy Altz understands the value of plussing, of adding value at every opportunity. What I'd like to suggest to you is that there's absolutely nothing on the planet that you and I cannot add value to if we replace money with imagination. If we replace capital with creativity. The Denver Zoo had a problem that every zoo in the United States has, and that is what to do with the exotic animal waste. We typically would call that manure. Now, you might think that that kind of a problem would be a cost to a business like a zoo. They'd have to basically pay someone to haul it off. But at the Denver Zoo today, they market in their gift shop and through other distribution channels something called Zoop. And I'll let you figure out what two words Zoop is a combination of. Zoop is exotic animal waste that you can put on your lawn or in your garden, and you can use for a number of fertilizer purposes at your home. What was once an expense has become revenue. They added value to animal manure. Folks, if you can add value to animal manure, you can add value to anything. In the essence of time, I'm going to give you the 6 ways you can add value to any product or service or activity in your business or your life. As far as I know, there are only 6. You may categorize them differently, but basically these are the 6. The first, you can do it more. More is quantity. Provide more of what you do than your competitors. Near my home, there was a restaurant called Claim Jumper. Claim Jumper is a popular restaurant, often a 1 or 2 hour wait to get in. Is the food really good? I personally don't think so, but it is really plentiful. The servings are gigantic. That has become their plussing technique to give you more food than you could possibly consume. The first step is you could do it more. Secondly, you could do it better. That's quality. One of only a handful of profitable airlines in the United States today is Midwest Express. Midwest Express is a regional carrier that is more profitable than most national or international carriers. Why? When you get a seat on Midwest Express, it's a first-class seat, even though it's a coach